Hey there, Proud Nation. It's Carter Harkins and Taylor Hill with some bonus content available only in the Blue Collar Proud Show app. So if you have the app, and you have the app if you're hearing my voice and you're seeing this video, so that means that you've got the app, because that's the only place you can find this bonus content. We're really excited today to be talking with Joe Crisara. You know, we just had a conversation, Taylor and I, talking about compensation strategies for small service businesses who are at that point where they're trying to decide the best way to compensate sales employees. Is it a commission strategy? Is it bonus strategy? What are the different types of compensation, and how do they vary, and when does it make sense? And both Taylor and I thought, you know what, we got to reach out to Joe Crisara. He is America's service sales coach, and I bet that he's got some answers. So we've reached out to Joe today, and Joe's graciously said, yes, I want to be on the show, and I've got some ideas. He even said, in our back and forth, he said, I've got some ideas that are a little counterintuitive about this subject, and so I can't wait to hear these things. I don't know what he's going to say. That's part of the beauty of these bonus content segments is this is about us having questions and going to experts to find out the answers. And today we definitely have one of those experts. Joe Crisara, welcome to the show.
Welcome, guys. Thanks for inviting me, and Taylor and Carter. Definitely, it's an honor to be here again, trying to do the best I can to give the best information to the hardest working people in this country.
Well, and you've done that certainly a few times for us already as a guest on our show in a regular interview. But in this bonus section, this bonus content, we wanted to talk to you specifically about the question that Taylor and I have had. We've seen different businesses with different compensation packages and strategies. And every business owner that we talk to has a very strong feeling about the way that they're doing it. But some of them are kind of at that point where they're trying to think about the best strategy moving forward. What can we do that doesn't break the bank? What can we do to incentivize and attract the best kinds of salespeople and employees for us? And I know that that's something that you can speak to. So tell us a little bit about what you see out there in the businesses that you've consulted with and worked with and helped to grow. What are the ways that they compensate employees?
Well, that's a really great, obviously it's a very broad subject, but when it comes to compensation programs, it really goes to the heart of the productivity of the company. In a way, trying to tie people's pay to the amount of productivity they have is a great notion in trying to run your business, because in a way it kind of almost forces the profit to happen. Profitability starts to happen because we're only paying after we've made money, and everybody kind of partners in that thing when we do a performance-based type pay. So there's three different kinds of pay programs I've identified. One is just your standard hourly pay. The problem with hourly pay is that it leads to sort of like an entitlement that this is my job and this is something I have. And, people look at a job as something they have is really not a very healthy way to look at it. A job is something that's not a birthright. It's something that we have to create value to keep that job or to maybe even progress in our career. But a lot of times people settle into an hourly thing as it's like an entitlement as opposed to something I am going to provide value every week. So that's the danger of the hourly program, is it turns into sort of like now institutional entitlement for all my employees, collecting that. The other and the complete other end of the spectrum is the performance pay, which is that as you provide something for the company, you get a percentage of it, or billable hours, or other ways of paying that regard. Now, the problem or the challenge in that area is that you wind up with a bunch of people who are saying, well, unless we get paid from somebody, why would I do that effort? So let's say you got some guy who's in the HVAC business or the plumbing or some kind of a pest control or whatever, and you're saying, hey, I'd like to go out and deliver this thing to a customer, his invoice, and he's like, well, I'm not getting paid for that, right? I mean, how do I get paid for that? We'll just, then all of a sudden you're turning into a King Solomon decision as to how much you got to pay a guy to go deliver a filter or deliver something to a customer, go help a coworker on a callback or whatever. That becomes now like, I don't want to do that because I'm not getting paid a percentage of a callback because nobody's getting paid for anything. And so now nobody wants to do service. So the service level tends to drop when it's only performance pay, because now we got people who are almost too entrepreneurial and not thinking about the actual work that needs to be done between the things. So really the third way of doing it is a hybrid of both, which is an hourly pay with a performance bonus And the way that works is basically you would have an hourly pay, and then you say, okay, if I'm paying somebody X amount of dollars per hour, let's just say, for instance, $20 per hour, you would say to yourself, well, for the $20 an hour, 40 hours a week, that's $800 I'm paying somebody. I'd have to make about $5,000 in retail money to pay that payroll for $800 just to have somebody sell something, or so you have to basically say, 20% of the work and the sales effort would be about 16 to 20% is about what I could afford to pay. And if it's only sales, I'd say at the most 10%. So if I have somebody who I'm going to pay $1,000 to, or if I sold $5,000, he would get 20% of it, or 10% of it for selling it, another 10% for doing it, and things like that. And so basically, you'd have a thing where the employee would have to make a certain amount first, let's say $5,000, and then after that, performance bonuses kick in. Right now, that's probably the most balanced approach, because with that, you have an element of the hourly where people feel like I have a job, and you can tell the employee what to do. You can say, hey, go deliver these filters or things. And then the other aspect is that they exceed what they normally would do. So if you're thinking a normal employee should make $5,000 for the company, you can say, I can now pay you more since you've exceeded that amount, and we can share a percentage. The percentage maybe being 2%, 4%, 6%, something like that, after the initial amount has been hit. So I call it a bonus threshold. You have hourly, you hit a certain threshold, and now you start to get bonuses. That's really the most popular system that is going on right now with the blue-collar companies that I'm familiar with.
So I've got a really quick question. I've actually got two. One is, how does culture kind of play into compensation? That's the first one. And then the second... I'm sorry. And the second question is, for commissionable compensation or bonus compensation, how do you actually track that? Those are my two questions.
That's really great questions, and you kind of, like, as usual, Taylor, you just kind of you put the softball out there for me to hit this one. This is one I love, because this is something that's going to be kind of hidden in plain sight, and for all the people listening across the entire country of the United States of America. Usually it tends the culture of different cities. You're correct. If I went to Los Angeles and said to a plumber, for instance, that I want to get a job, pretty much every company out here is going to be like, oh, it's not a problem. We pay 10% when you sell a job and 10% when you do a job. That's kind of what they might say, something like that. If I said, well, I'm a union plumber from Chicago and I make $45 an hour or make $75 an hour with my benefits, they'd laugh. They would be like, well, have fun with that, trying to find a job in California. You're not going to find that out here, and so yet, in the same token, if you the California plumber going to a place like Boston or Chicago or Cleveland, the union-based type cities where the traditional the culture is a union culture. Let's face it, you got places like Detroit, Chicago, the East Coast. It tends to be more hourly. And the bonus part of it is just not even thought of. However, the hourly is much higher because there's fewer. And the licensing and those states that are more that have more of that culture built into the union culture have also made the licensing tied in with that unioning mentality. So, for instance, in a state like Illinois, it's almost impossible to get a plumbing license unless you're part of the union, which means that there's fewer plumbers. So, therefore, with fewer plumbers, now each plumber is going to make more money on the hour. But if I went to Chicago and tried to get most of the people going to a commission or bonus, they would laugh at me on that. They would no way they would ever. They say, I'm not going to do that. I need to make this much per hour. The funny thing, though, is that we do have some companies in Chicago that went to a union companies that have gone to say, hey, we're paying these guys this much money. We should get them to be productive. We still need training. It's not just because they were trained how to turn a wrench doesn't mean they know how to communicate. So there has been some forward companies that have trained even the union plumbers to say, hey, now, for instance, a union plumber, you would say, we expect $12,000 in service from you. If you sell more than that, we'll share that commission. So just the threshold becomes higher, but it can be introduced that way, right, guys? I mean, a blue-collar plumber in the central part of the United States, which is probably more of a hourly culture, you can introduce the threshold bonus still in a healthy way. without coming off like turning a plumber into a salesman. That's the idea, that most people don't want to turn their blue collar plumber or type of auto mechanic, turn the guy turning a wrench into a used car salesman at that point. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, sure does.
Yeah, but I would say overall, the South and the West Coast seems like it's more open to that performance-based thing. The upper central part of the United States and the East Coast in general, this is a very general statement here, but I would say that they seem more prone to wanting to stick with the hourly. But there's a lot of people now breaking through to go to this performance threshold where we can at least give a guy an incentive if he does do good. Because even though the different companies that have like a union employee, they basically say everybody's created equal, and they are created equal, but the performance is not always equal. That's the thing that needs to be acknowledged by the companies. It makes sense that you can acknowledge that by giving somebody more money based on that too. You know what I'm saying?
How does that change? Like, I mean, we've talked about sort of regional culture by city or region or state, but how does it change the culture inside the company when you shift? Because I'm sure you've been a part of businesses that have changed their compensation structure. How does that change what goes on in the company, the way that employees, I mean, does it rock the boat a lot? How do you navigate that change?
Well, yeah, it depends on. It is important. It's a good point there, guys. And Carter, one of the most important factors is that when you implement a new pay program, such as complete performance pay, threshold, going away from hourly, or adding on to the hourly thing by creating compensation bonuses. One other part of it has to be the reason why we are doing this. So this is a big one. If you don't tell people the reason why we're doing it, like if you tell your guys the reason why we're doing it is to get everybody rich here, to make more money, that's not going to be the reason. Then people will probably turn it down or not perform well under that thing because they think it's greedy in a way, a greedy motive. The pure motive, which is we're doing this so that our client gets better customer service because we feel like if we compensate you so if you offer more of our services and customers buy them, they will be happier, and you and your family will be happier because you'll be doing higher quality work and more plumbing and less driving. That's why we're doing it. So if you tell people the bigger picture as to why we're doing it, the end result, you will get paid more money. There's no doubt about it that anybody who's on performance pay overall will get paid a lot more than anybody on an hourly program by far. However, if that's the reason why you're implementing it, you can expect it to fail with a great thud because most blue-collar people do not want to become a salesperson. They just want to help their customer get the best solutions and help their company become the best as well, too. If I ask the two goals of every person that comes to our seminars, it's always that I want my company to be the best. I want to be the best plumber. I want my clients to get the best. Those are the reasons why you should be implementing the system. So that pay system, you have to be able to connect the dots for the employees as to how this will help the customer experience, how will it help you as your employee experience, and how will it help the company's experience in this whole process. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. So
if it doesn't do that, it won't work.
Yeah.
It will definitely fail. The way to make it fail is just talk about how much more money we're going to make, and that will make every blue collar person hate it.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, which is counterintuitive to a lot of owners, but the reality is the kind of guys you want to hire are service guys. I mean, the ones that want to serve their clients,
motivated by service.
Absolutely. So
if you can get
sense.
the blue collar guy, the guy who's out there working and sweating in an attic or a crawl space or whatever, to say, listen, I want this to be I want the best for your family, the best for our clients, and that's why we're doing this, and that's why I want to help you with a better compensation package once we hit the certain level of performance. I want to be able to profit. I want to be able to partner with you. See, that's things that ring the bell for a blue collar guy. Like my boss is going to partner with me. Mm-hmm. Wow, this isn't just a job. This is now an opportunity for me and my family and my clients to get everything that I've always wanted. And so that's the thing that everybody wants, as opposed to a pay system that I just pay people more money. You can see it's kind of like the money's being doled out from the top. It's not something that we are collaborating on in a way. So that's the way to do it. Now, you did mention before, Taylor, about how to track it, right?
Yeah. How do you track that and make sense of it? I mean, I know everybody pretty much, that I know does the closing ratio and knows that. My bigger question is, I guess, is it on a rolling 30? Is it, every month? I mean, how do most companies actually track performance and be able to do that in a way that makes sense for them?
Yes,
and
I
and
got
that
you.
and that the employee understands as well.
You know what? And that's a good question. I would tell every owner of a company who currently has a performance pay program or a commission pay program, and I would say, do an inventory. Have a person that's not you go up to an average employee who's under this program and say, "Hey, could you explain our commission program to me?" And if he kind of looks like, "Holy cow, why are you asking me that question?" If he looks like, "Oh my goodness, I have to go get my documents," you're right. That program is going to fail. It may succeed in the beginning because people are kind of into it, but once the paperwork gets put away, it's like you got to remember how I get paid, because if you don't remember that how you're getting paid, it's not going to work. So people aren't going to work it. So the first step is take an inventory on people knowing what it takes to get a bonus or a performance pay bonus on today's paycheck. How do you get paid our bonus? And if they say, "I don't know, I have to look at my documents or whatever," it's a pretty complicated formula. I just do stuff and they pay me. There's no inspiration. They're just doing it and they see it. It's like a lotto. I won $300 this week extra. It's not gonna win. It's like a game of luck at that point, guys, right? It's not a game of skill.
Yeah.
Now going to the how frequent, that's a very, very important subject, and I'm glad you asked. I didn't even think you were going to ask this, but you guys are always the people with the great questions, and here's a great answer for you. A monthly program, definitely a yearly program, is way too long to acknowledge somebody's performance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that person will. If I'm out, like, listen, if a normal service tech does like 3,000 a week at your company or whatever kind of a business I'm in, and I'm coming in and I know Joe Crisara that I'm like, the first thing I'm going to do when I get in this place is make the company about 20,000 a week. That's what I know I can do. I know I can do 4,000 a day times 5 days a week. I'm going to offer enough services, premium, mid-range economy options, 20,000 minimum. I have a guy in Boston who sells $8 million a year. That's over $150,000 a week. You know what I'm saying there? So basically, he knows he can do it. If he did it one place, he worked at two places, and now he did it at both places. So it's not like he doesn't know he can do it. So I know I can come in there and do this. If you're going to wait for a year, so if I'm making $20 an hour, so is my coworker, but I'm the guy who's bringing in $1 million a year, and the other guy's making in $100,000 a year. It's like I'm going to find somewhere else to work if you're not going to compensate me till the end of next year. And here's another problem, guys. If the company waits till the end of the year to compensate that guy, think of the pressure that the company has to come up with all that money to have to compensate the guy. It's like, oh my goodness. When I met that guy who does $8 million a year, the first company I met him at in 2005, his company owed him $94,000 from the previous year that they didn't pay him. Because why? Because they waited to the end of the year to settle up. And they could never pay it. They didn't have any way of paying it. And I had to negotiate a settlement between the two of them. Basically, they wound up paying off the guy's credit cards for $40,000 to settle the whole thing, and that was it. But it was like basically it was a dysfunctional system because it waited too long, too much pressure on the company. So here's my advice. A yearly program, forget it. Nobody pays attention to it. It's worthless. If you do pay money on a yearly program, it's just money that's wasted. Because it's like, oh, you're paying me finally. And then when you do that, wait for the year, people always think it's too little. Like, oh, you're giving me $5,000, I should be getting $50,000. They're always disgruntled when you give them the big check. Like remember Clark from the Vacation?
Vacation, you bet.
Waiting for his bonus check for the swimming pool, and instead he got a surprise instead, right? Now, so here's the thing. Here's a short answer to a long. The long answer is already too short for the long answer, but here we go. Basically, a weekly program is the way to go. A weekly, basically every week you reset the clock. Here's why. Now, I know this is going to put pressure on the accounting. The accounting people are like, are you crazy? I can't get my book. We're not even getting our book straight till like the end of next month or whatever. It takes us 2 months to get that straightened out. That's good. That's called a constructive conflict. You're creating a pay system where you have to figure it out every week. That gets your accountant to say, I need to get my stuff together so that by Tuesday of the following week, we got to get the payroll ready for this next week. And I got to know what this guy sold last week and see how much more you're creating a functional you're forcing functionality onto the accountant or onto the bookkeeper because all this has got to get entered in, all of it's got to get figured out by Tuesday. Now you're saying, what kind of person is going to stay up for the whole weekend to figure all this stuff out, right? And that brings up the tools that you would need that could automatically do that so you're not having to manually do this process. So going back to the way it was normally done in the old days, a plumber would sit there and fill out a time log, which would say, here's my hours, here's how much I sold, here's my billable hours. So you're basically turning a plumber into an accountant, or you're turning a auto mechanic into an accountant. You know what I'm saying there?
Yep.
It just doesn't make sense that you got this guy. And then he starts doing about half of the work. He's like, I'm tired. I work so hard. And he stops doing it, and he stops caring about it. And then the people stop caring about the system because you're making me do too much work to claim my bonus. And that's something that's just not going to work either. So it's got to be something where at the end of the week, based on the results of me doing my work, it's being compiled by the magic computer, and that computer is something I'm able to see and be able to track my progress on a daily basis to know if I'm getting close to my goal or if I've achieved my goal every week, and that's what I would tell people they need to have there. So going back to the question, a weekly pay program is what this is. Don't turn it into a monthly one because your accounting people are weak. So just because your accounting people are weak, get them stronger. You know, the accounting people need to get their muscles. This is some heavy lifting here. All the stuff's got to be figured out from the last week. How much deposits? How much do we do? What's the revenue? Did we collect all the money? And you have the final reports by the Tuesday of the next week so that we know how much we're going to pay people. And there's no questions. And then the employee knows it. We know it. It's transparent. There's no secret system here to the pay part of it. Because if it's something the employee doesn't understand, they're not going to buy into it, and they're not going to do it. And if you wait too long, it's like, here's another problem about waiting for the month, for instance. What happens there is that the employee has a bad week, and he's like, well, I'll just catch up next week. I got the whole month. Then he has a bad second week. Oh, darn, I'll catch up next week. Next thing you know, the whole month is gone, and we haven't caught up at all. And I'll get it next month. And then, that's the problem. You're always kind of waiting for it. Whereas if you're not successful this week, we can do some coaching this week to help you get back on track. And now next week we hit the reset button. Another thing, too, if a guy sells something that has a lot of success in 1 week and you are waiting for a month, he might sandbag it and say, I already made my month. Why even I'm going to take off a couple of days now. I got my bonus I wanted, and that usually is what usually happens when you do the monthly thing, too. You get people sandbagging, I call it, where they sell a lot in the first week, and then they're like, I'm just going to go play softball the rest of the month or whatever type of thing, and it turns into a vacation, paid vacation. 3 weeks at that point. So that's why the weekly pay program, to me, I have no negotiation on this factor. I have seen companies that waited too long to pay their bonus. So the year thing completely that's like old school. That's Clark from the 50s and the vacation movie. You go to the monthly thing. Again, you're giving your accountant, the reason you're doing it that way, because the accountant said they can't get it together. You will get some computer programs or something that will allow you to track that progress and use it in real time. Modernize yourself so you can do that. The weekly thing is really where it's at. So you hit the reset. Every week's a new game. It's like a football game. You start over, kick it off on Monday, and we'll see what the score is on Friday or whatever it is. Make sense?
It totally makes sense. I'm curious, because we work with all sorts of different industries, and I'm starting to realize just how different from one home service industry to another. Let's just say in plumbing, is there, if you're resetting the clock every single week, I'm guessing that the nature of plumbing sales is you're going to close the person while you're there in their home, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot of, let me think about it and get back to you on this project, or is there? I mean, how long does an estimate stay open in plumbing?
Well, it's like in the guy who does $8 million a year. He does HVAC sales. He also does home improvement sales. He does a bunch of, his palette of solutions is large. Everything starts out as a free estimate, competing against 5 people. So the plumber has definitely a lot easier because it's like, hey, where's water? Yeah. I can't use my water today. Yeah. There's no hot water now. That's so the urgency and the time frame does make an impact. However, if you start cycling all these calls into place, there's nobody who says that you have to make a price today for somebody. I mean, if I go to a call and I realize that a husband and wife aren't even home and they're not going to move forward with the project till 2 weeks from now, I might decide to hold off until I have a chance to meet with everybody. So one of the things that best practices we could have a whole other show on is the timing of the presentation and when you launch those numbers to your customer. You can do it at the time that people are ready to decide. So the smartest thing you could do is to present the right solutions for the people you're going to at the right time when everybody's ready to move forward, as opposed to doing it soon and then letting everybody else shoot at your numbers. That's something that I would not advise anybody to do. So, but I think if you look at the whole cycle of it, you might give a guy like it's a normal sales guy who has longer opportunity, like a guy who sells something that landscaping opportunities or whatever comes in, that may take 2-week sales cycle on that. Yet you start doing a number of them, and all of a sudden they start piling up, and pretty much you're closing something every day because you're doing 2 a day. Like you might do first visit this week, present next week, close it next week, at the end of next week, the following week. It might be a 3-week deal there. But you start cycling all that in, pretty much you're going on some first calls, some second calls, and then the close. It all kind of catches up at one time, and you start averaging. A guy like that in the landscaping business could be doing $40,000-$60,000 a week in sales if he was good at keeping track of those visits in a way. The first visit, learn about the customer, what we're doing here. Second visit, price it out and present it. Now, they all could be in the same call if the urgency is higher, but if it's not higher, then you've got to present it at the right time with the right people. Because I can tell you one thing, presenting solutions at the wrong time is guaranteed to not get the job. I can tell you that right now.
So when you're talking with a team, and I'm guessing that a business owner has a little bit different objective than the salesperson is going to have. When you talk about closing rate or ratio, when you're talking about a percentage of how many jobs you present and how many of them you close, is that something that the salesperson cares about, or is that really only an objective number for the owner of the business to understand, how John is more effective than Joe or whatever?
Well, it's not a competition between our coworkers. What it is, though, is how much time I've spent compared to how much time I'm getting paid for, right? I mean, it's really a matter of productivity. I went out there and did 10 opportunities this week in 40 hours. That averages about 4 hours per opportunity. How many of these things did I get paid for? And so I got paid for 80% of them, which means I did pretty good. That's not now I get paid. I'm happy with this compensation at that closing rate. So I think that I would say that the salesperson's metrics and the owner's metrics are really the same. They're in the same best interest of each other. In a way, a salesperson. I always tell salespeople. I hear some salespeople go, "I'm thinking someday of starting my own business." I'm like, you know what? Right now, if they're getting a 10% commission, for instance, I always say, well, just so you know, in this business, you're guaranteed a 10% profit on your commission. I said, nobody can take that from you when you sell. You get a 10% commission. An owner of a company, he's like one truck getting damaged or a workman's comp claim from losing his profit this week. There's no. I would say so. Rick, the guy who does $8 million a year, his W-2, he made $820,000 last year. So what owner from a blue collar company is going to make that kind of money? So you wouldn't make nowhere near the kind of money as an owner as you would as a top notch sales guy, believe it or not, if you're really doing this the right way. Even if you were just a $2 million, right now I'd say the bar for most service businesses is about $2 million is a really great productivity for a salesperson, about $40,000 a week selling opportunities out there. And it doesn't take that much, just a couple opportunities a day. Some can be self-generated by going out and getting referrals and that type of stuff. Some come through advertising and marketing and things like that. But you give me 2 new people a day, that person should be doing anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 a week with those opportunities.
In what industry are you talking about there?
Well, I think every industry has endless opportunities, but sometimes the owner and the salespeople are standing right in front of it and they don't see it. They don't. They're like, if I went to a company, I'd say, what about this, this, and this? And they're like, oh, I never even thought of that. Like electricians, you'd be surprised how many electricians, when I mention the word generator, they go, oh, geez, I don't even know about that. I'm not sure. Who does that? I was like, well, electricians do it. And they're like, really? I was like, it's like, you would think an electrician would know that generators should be part of their business, especially like on the East Coast where they had floods and hurricanes. And if you're not selling generators as an electrician, it's like, wow. I'm not sure what you're standing right next to. You're leaning against a gold mine, and you're not even seeing it. So I think every business has the chance to expand their opportunities, guys, and they are probably sitting in something that's hidden in plain sight. And that's what I'm good at doing. I'm good at seeing opportunity that they don't see. I look at a business that normally does, like, I met a company one time. The guy is doing $110,000 for the whole year between two guys. And he's like, you think you could help us? I said, I'll tell you what. I'll help you for free. The first $110,000 is you get that money. After that, I'll get a percentage after the 110, and I'll build my money so the customer pays me for it. And they go, okay, we'll see how fast you get. It's going to take you all year. I'm like, we'll see. By January 17th, we made $110,000 of the year we first started with that company, and the rest of the year I just got the percentage of what they did because we helped them. The company eventually wound up doing $2.3 million the first year we helped them on this. So the difference is I saw things that they were just bypassing. HVAC guys inside the box fixing little parts. I'm like, how about the ductwork? This ductwork's been here since 1950. Don't you think we got our money's worth? Let's go ahead and give an option to replace it so they have a modern, clean duct system. They can breathe the air here easier and things like that. So basically. Yeah, I mean there's tons of opportunity, guys, in pretty much every business. I have not. You name a business, and I'll tell you the thing that they're missing because I've seen just about I've done a lot of other businesses too. I had a coffee shop that was about to close their doors one time. I just helped them change their menu, and they wound up making more money in 2 days than they made the 2 months before that.
Ouch.
It is. It's nuts. She told me she was ready to close, and I said, well, let's change your menu and just put the premium drinks at the top, the mid-range drinks, and the economy drinks. Let's rearrange this thing. They just had a big mess when I looked at with their business. I said, let's just change it. I didn't even charge her for it. I said, let's go to Kinko's and make a sign and change the menu. And she goes, you think it'll work? I'm like, well, I know right now it's not working, right? And she goes, yeah. I said, let's try it. So in one weekend, she sold more stuff in 2 days than they had sold the previous 2 months. That's what she told me.
Good.
Crazy.
Oh, man.
That's awesome.
It's crazy.
Joe, man, I want to respect your time. Yeah. You've brought it today. I really appreciate you sharing this valuable information with us and with our listeners. Tell everybody where they can connect with you if they want to pursue this further.
Well, actually, we have a program called Jobby.pro, which is a program that you can use to track all your sales and business process. So you can answer the phone, put the calls into the system, your technicians or people in the field. We can even help you create your pricing database. Any industry can be helped with this thing. Whether you're cleaning houses, doing janitorial, doing landscaping, plumbing, air conditioning, heating, we can create a database in about 7 minutes that can help you get started with this. And then you can start to show it to your customers and start to find some of those opportunities. Well, I'm here to help you find those opportunities as well too. And call me at www.jobby.pro. You can go there and find our phone number and call us, or come visit us. I'd definitely love to see everybody there.
Joe Crisara, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being on today.
Thank you, guys.